Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025, Harwich Town Hall. We've got our local planning committee meeting in session. Call the roll. What's the first thing we need to go over? Do we have a quorum?
We have a
do.
quorum.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
5,
we
6,
do.
7.
Is there anybody online?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Great. Okay.
Move approval of the minutes.
Yeah,
Second,
awesome.
get this ball rolling.
Let's look to review and approve the meeting minutes for May 19th. Do we have that or no?
Yeah, you just said
Didn't I
that.
send them?
Yes, you
Yes.
did.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 19th.
You already did, I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
I'll second.
Awesome.
Who did? Ed?
Fine, take it over, go ahead.
Get some control of this one.
Really?
And we got our second, right?
Yeah, any
Okay,
discussion, Alicia?
Any
deletions?
discussion? No.
All
Move to
favor.
approve the minutes. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
You don't need to
Awesome.
roll call.
So we'll move on to part B of our agenda, which is a global review of the local comprehensive plan. So who is taking that one away?
Christine.
The priorities, is that what that topic is, to the priorities?
I'm gonna make it that topic for tonight so we can move,
Perfect.
to move this along,
Great.
Yep.
All right.
Brian and Mary, and I wanna, thank both of them for all of the work,
Yep.
particularly for, Mary for setting up and organizing all of the action items. It was a lot of work, and I really appreciate all of the help.
I believe it. I believe it.
Harwichopoly.
I love it. I love it.
Now, did everybody get the spreadsheet
Yes.
Christine sent out? So have that in front of you.
Okay.
We're gonna refer to it.
Okay.
Scary.
I'll wait till everybody's got it. Most of us actually had it out.
The physical spreadsheet?
Yeah,
No, I just have it online.
I'm just joking.
I was like, how many pages was that?
So the spreadsheet is a great capture of our prioritization of each of the action items. So first thing I want to do is, we're gonna go through a little bit of an exercise.
Here's
But
Joyce.
Just want to give everybody the confidence, what's that?
Joyce is online.
Joyce is online with
That's it.
There goes Joyce.
You're good.
Hey Joyce.
Hi, Joyce.
I am. I can't see. Hey, I can't see you guys, but I may leave and come back just to see the webcam kicks in. But I'm here,
Okay.
so
Thank you.
carry on. Sorry.
Okay. From a sense of prioritization, the work that this team has done, even though we've done 2 scores, right, for every action item, we've done value and we've done feasibility. The result of that, when you grid them, is this is the prioritization. If you wanted to look at a standard high, medium, low prioritization, these are our highs, right? Those are the highs. These 2 quadrants are the mediums. They're just mediums with a little extra insight as to, are they complex, not complex, is the value higher or lower? And what it does, when you have enough resource and you've done all of this work and you're starting to work on this, it just gives you a little bit of insight as to which one of those should I start to work on next. But here's your ones, so these are our highs, these are our mediums, and these are our lows. So if we called end of meeting right now, that's our priority. The reason that we do a 2x2, and the reason that we have, forget the highs aside right now, because those are the high value, high feasibility, just attack them first. And by the way, I think we should articulate which of these things are already in progress. So we're not trying to reprioritize something
It's ongoing.
that's ongoing. So as we go through this, we'll make sure we mark it as a priority.
I want to understand a little clearer. Let's just look at your top right quadrant. Are those all rated feasibility 4, or some of them rated
No.
feasibility 3?
There's some of them are 3. So if you look at the tab in your spreadsheet called the scoring matrix, you'll see where we have articulated what goes into what quadrant. Do you see that last tab in the spreadsheet?
The evaluation matrix one?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's some
Everybody see
handouts
that?
too.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody need it, the handout?
No,
No, we
we've
got
got it.
Okay.
It's a little
I'll do the
scrambled on my
handout, but
screen.
if you look at And again, our purpose is not to do action items from number 1 to number 52 in rank order. What we're trying to do is draw a circle around what the top priority is, a circle around the middle, and a circle around the low.
So-
So this is a technique, let me answer your question. This is a technique to say that those high impacts of the 4, 4, the 4, 3, they kind of belong together, they're high. The 3 impact with the 4 feasibility, those are high. And it's not really about the precision of moving the 4 4s above the 3 3s. We're not trying to get overly complex. We're simply trying to draw a circle around the highs, a circle around the middle, and a circle around the lows. The rest of what happens with, let me finish this thought. The rest of what happens with which one do I do in what order happens when you're trying to schedule.
Everything in that upper right quadrant
Within our control, that's not.
is in the top of these where impact and feasibility are both either 4 or 3.
Yes.
So we end up with a lot of things in there.
Wait a minute. The exception is if it's a 4 of impact and it's a low feasibility, then it starts to slide
Right.
to the medium.
But you've got to be a 4 or a 3 in both
In both.
impact and feasibility,
Exactly right.
and everything I see in there. Now, within there, have you separated 4, 4 from 3, 4,
No,
4, 4?
We're not trying to do that.
So you've just
It's an
got
aggregate.
everything that's a 4 and a 3 in that quadrant. Okay,
Right.
I understand.
Think of it as an intellectual exercise. As if you were just to say, every action item, let me just give it in total, 3, 2, or high, medium, or low. What we're not trying to, I think we need to be very careful about using our assessment to imply schedule. Because otherwise, the 4 4s, ooh, I better do every 4 4 first before I do any 4 3 or 3 4. Let's just draw the circle around the highs, and then Christine, your team is really going to drive the scheduling and the implementation planning. And a lot of times that comes down to what teams are available, it's resource-based, it's,
Money.
What grant appears out of the legislature?
well, they probably slow somewhere down here though.
So just to understand further, in the upper right quadrant, and I'm not criticizing, I'm just trying to understand, a 3, 3 is pretty much ends up in the same place as a 4, 4.
Yes, yes. Again, think of this as no different than rating everyone high, medium, low. What we've done is we've added a little bit more precision around value and feasibility to help when, David, all the work that we did in, I won't use the word governance again, but implementation tracking. Where this starts to help is in the outer years, when you're getting out into year 2 and year 3, and you're starting to assess which of these do I start to do next. Let me look at who did the feasibility score. Have things changed that would make you move the feasibility score up or down, which might change the way in which I start scheduling these projects in the outer years. Or some of these. You know, we're probably not going to be able to do every one of these things that are up in this quadrant.
Good Lord, no.
Okay, now,
Does that make sense?
the upper right makes sense, and now my question is, the upper left versus the lower right.
Upper left versus the lower right, correct.
Is one of those
Okay.
sooner than the other? And if so,
Yes,
why?
yes. The reason is,
See this.
anybody want to help?
You're doing what,
No,
you're doing
it's-
great,
yeah,
go
Keep
for
going.
it.
It says
Yeah.
in the lower right corner, David, and you can't see it, do next as opposed to do later.
I know, and I'm not sure I
I'll
agree
tell
with
you-
that,
I'll
so I'm
tell-
trying to
okay,
understand. it.
here's the way to think about it. These are high value, high impact, right? High impact,
Low feasibility.
low feasibility.
Oh, that is the
Because
way-
they're high impact,
That's the way I want
I
it.
start thinking about these as the medium highs.
Yes, I agree with that.
These are the medium lows. So now we added a little extra precision on almost on a scale of 1 to 4.
So lower right, I'm sorry for jumping in. So lower right
Who's running this
is
meeting?
not as feasible. I'm sorry, is not as impactful, but it's a little higher on feasibility than an
It
impact.
could be a little low-hanging fruit. a
Okay,
little
so I
low on
definitely
value.
agree with your upper left being above your lower right. Okay, that's good.
And if we actually had these things and plotted by their actual score, the 3 3s were here. You'd start to see a clustering right around here. And what we've done with clients is almost draw an arc and say what you're really trying to work on are arcing your way through.
Yeah.
And it's really just for that reason. But the real value of using the 2x2 is in the outer years. And that's what we owe to the town when they say, how does this thing get managed? It gets managed by using this and checking the progress on these and rescoring what you might want to start to pull in next. Because we used to say feces changes. I mean, things change.
Does it matter that we have so much more in the top two? Both of those are pretty highly populated.
Well, we're saying is they're most important, but let's look at them and see if there's any that we want to adjust. They may all belong there, and it really becomes a resource and scheduling issue. Can you get to them?
May
Go ahead.
I just jump in?
Absolutely.
And again, this is why having that as a visual aid, because as we were going through the numeric ranking, I could tell as everybody was collaborating on the numbers, I knew it was gonna end up there because everyone felt strongly about what was important, what we needed to do now. So now we can actually see that might be challenging to have everything up in that upper right quadrant. So now we're just tweaking. What can we maybe put in another quadrant and put in a realistic time frame? Because I have to tell you, what we all deemed important, housing is really up on that upper right. A whole slew of housing.
But that's why I don't think we want to get into is housing a little more upper right than something else. This is prioritization. Let's not confuse it with scheduling. Some of these blocks are wicked big, some of them are small, some of them are already gone. So let's let that be a scheduling activity. That's implementation.
So I don't know how much we're planning to get into these. We could really get bogged down. Or we could just say, oh gee, that's good. I don't know which way we're supposed to be going.
Well, I'm saying is if we're comfortable that this is the score,
I
we're
don't know.
done. But let's go through, and I would suggest that we just look at the highs
Okay.
and say, are we comfortable? Let's look at color by color and say, are we comfortable where things landed? And it's okay.
I mean, I would think that the bucket is the most important thing, because like all we're trying to do is set an idea around what could be the priority. We're not telling the select board what it is, we're not telling the planning department what they need to schedule first. It's just, hey, here's what we've heard from the voices of our community, and this is like housing. It's overwhelmingly resounding that this is a thing that needs to be heard and listened to and adjusted for. So I think, I see why things are weighted the way they are. I also think that it's not really our role, I don't think it is, our role to say, okay, well then, here's what the proposed schedule should look like in this. So I think we should steer clear of that. So if we get into the nitty-gritty of it, I feel like we're getting closer to that versus keeping it broad enough where it's like, hey, here's everything we've put together, you guys decide how you want to build the artwork, you know what I mean?
Is there a way, I mean, because Brian and Mary and those of you in the field have spoken about that there's a visually impactful way to convey this information, right? So that kind of says, it gets across the 4 out of 4, the 4s and the 4s without just a grid, which is draft currently, but doesn't put a timeline on it. Like, so, I mean, could you what's the standard? Could you literally have like a visual, like high impact, I'm gonna mangle the words, but like high impact,
High feasibility.
straightforward. Yeah, high feasibility. Just 4 quadrants,
Yeah,
and leave it at that, or what's the standard?
yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Does Joyce have this or not?
I can send it to.
Yeah, Joyce, I was talking to Sharon before
I do-
the meeting started, and one
Yeah.
of the thoughts that
Yeah.
Sharon had was leading each section, for example, waste management section, rather than just listing on a list what all these action items are, she could actually produce this 2x2 as a lead into the section, which kind of communicates what the actions are,
I think that-
and it puts it in context.
I think that's great. Yeah, great. Yeah, you put it, and that way
Yeah,
it reflects all this truly deep prioritization work we've done the last few weeks, which has been very intense and I think high yield, but also avoids the concern about a, imposed time.
Right. And I think, I would suggest that once we put this out for review, once the select board's looking at it, I'm sure people are gonna wanna make subtle adjustments here or there, but we actually need to capture their logic. I mean, we had rationale that had us score these things the way they're scored, and in fairness, any adjustments to it ought to have rationale with it.
Couple things to muck things up.
Don't muck them up, though, we're doing
Sorry,
good.
that's what I do. What I'm seeing on this sheet here
Yeah.
does not match, if I understand correctly, what you just told me about upper right versus lower left. Because if you're in the lower right,
The lower right is
is a
where they're easy.
4 and 3 feasibility and 2 or 1 impact, which is not what I thought you told me.
Yeah,
So I don't know if something got swatched.
that's what he said.
Maybe I didn't, maybe I cut and pasted off. Let me see this.
I suspect you're correct up on the board, and something got swapped on this paper. So that is, I don't need to.
No, this is correct.
This is right.
What is correct, how, on the paper. The rationale is they're, right, they're 4s and 3s, so they're easier to do, but they're of low value. So don't spend a lot of time on it. They're lower value, the value score is up here. It's 1 to 4. Low, they're lower.
The top left is gonna require more planning and
Well, the
execution.
top left is simply to say, hey, this stuff is pretty important. Might want to start thinking about, can I break it up into pieces? Can I start advancing it?
Yeah.
This is just go do it. This is, it's so important, let's think about how to structure it,
Really
let's
plan
work
it,
on
yeah.
it, break it in pieces. This is, boy, easy to do,
Don't need to
not a lot
think
of
too much.
value. I wouldn't burn a lot of cycles on it. Right, so high, so this is your 3s, this is your highs, your medium highs,
Okay, so you,
your medium lows.
all right, so the lower right does happen before.
No, they don't have to be done in order. It's, when you have a prioritization,
But it says, if public sees do next versus do later, it sort of leads you in a certain direction.
we can change the definition of it if you like. What we're not trying to imply is a schedule.
Yeah.
It's do if you can. Yeah, maybe next is not the right word. What I had written was consider if you can.
Brian,
How
you're
about,
probably thinking, oh, sorry, go ahead, Joyce.
I was gonna say do soon and things. I think David's point of do next implies
Yeah, it's
linear
not-
thinking.
it's
And
not
the
written,
very
it's
nature,
not next.
not linear.
It's
Yeah.
do consider if you can. I think actually is a better term.
I think just the
Sure.
word consider, we can scratch that and just put
Consider.
the word
Boom.
consider. Boom.
Solved.
Yeah, low value.
Brian, this reminds me of like product backlogs,
Yeah.
right? Where you've got like just the items that are hanging there when people are in between work. That's that lower right section.
Oh, yeah, really,
You know?
written on the bottom, consider if you can.
Yeah.
This is, we don't really want to, other than the high, which is get it going now, we don't really want to imply order.
Yeah.
That's scheduled. And a lot has to do with how much resources does it take to do it.
My other attempt to muck things up
You gotta support it first.
is, I think this is great.
Okay, good, then you can.
I do.
So he's in on it. He's
No,
just
I think you're
refining it.
going in a very good direction. I started looking at some of the 3-3s. Personally, since we've got so many in there upper right, I would have the 4-4s, the 4-3s, and the 3-4s remain in that quadrant. And I personally wouldn't have the 3-3s there.
That is a way to shape it.
Yeah.
Maybe up to the group.
I'm not sure which of those other two quadrants I would move it in.
You-
Well,
Without regard at actually looking at the action and revisiting the action again.
You have to rescore it? Is that what you're
Have to.
thinking?
Really, you should.
No, he's saying keeping the score of
3-3.
4-4 and
But-
3-3 up there and the others redistribute.
Well,
Nah, you
No, I
didn't
think
say.
No, the three
what
threes.
he's trying to do is draw the grid a little higher. Instead of that grid being
Got
at
it.
2, he's trying to make the grid, which is fine. What he's saying is make it,
Yeah.
I see.
I'm saying it has to have at least one 4. So a 3-3 doesn't qualify.
How many of them are, well, let's see if that's.
So that's the thing, it's like, I feel like you need to, if you're gonna, if there's a point of contention here,
Yeah.
the 3-3 is the point of the contention. And do we either say it's either less feasible or it's higher impact? You know what I'm saying? Or like vice versa, because that's gonna dictate which.
But I think the 3-3 is the right score. I just don't
That's right.
believe it
You
belongs
don't
in
wanna
the
put
upper
it in
right
the hopper.
quadrant.
But,
Okay.
I don't need to rescore it.
but here's,
Do you put it in dead center then?
I don't know.
well,
I
here-
don't have an answer.
Well,
I don't have an
for
answer to
example,
that.
like
Let me-
zoning, anything with zoning is gonna take at least another 2 to 3 years. So that could be on the outer, on an outer ring.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be in the center. It could be kind of what Brian was saying in the arc.
one way to fix it though, and you can do it visually, is we can move this, we can have a dotted line, if you will.
Bullseye.
To say anything with a 3-3 goes in that, like, that little border. Anything with a 3-3 goes on the outer rim of 4-4, 4-3, or 3-4.
Okay.
That way, if anything got a 4, it gets, or if anything got a 4 and or a 3, no 4s and
So what
2s.
you're saying is, if they all stay in the upper right quadrant, you have this rim around that's a
Yeah.
3-3, and then-
Bullseye.
Yeah, let me see if I can
then you got
draw it.
everything else that's either a 4-4, a 4-3, or a 3-4.
You know what, we're not changing the scores, so we could draw it
Yeah.
and see if people like the way it looks. But what we're saying is, instead of,
It would border around the
yeah,
others.
that's exactly it.
Inside would be, yeah.
Right, so you got a little,
Yeah.
It's
An
worth
L.
a try.
yeah,
That makes sense.
so that's what we're saying is,
I'm trying to think of how that will work.
well, it's just where you place the action items, right? We're not, again, we're not, I don't think we wanna place them in any rank order, kind of random in the box.
We're
You
really,
could make a bullseye, like a target, where you get the 4-4s in the middle and where you have, end up with the 3-3s on the outside ring.
But it has gotta be it's two-dimensional though.
What about,
One-dimensional.
Okay.
what about when you look at, I'm shooting from the hip here, but I'm a visual soul. When, you look at like, you get a, say a stock support or whatever, it's high risk, high yield, like an XY axis.
but yeah.
Can
we
it be
had
a
that.
scout,
That is
like
what
on that?
We had that. I think it's really about plotting it.
Yeah.
Plotting these individually
Got it.
in that section, because then you're
Got
gonna
it,
see,
got it.
you're gonna see
I
visually,
got it.
David, what you were saying,
Yeah.
like the 3-3s are gonna be down here, and the 4-4s and the 4-3s are
We can
gonna be up higher.
actually pull them off and look at it and see how it
Why don't we do
feels.
that?
So
And,
let's-
well, I think Barbara was taking it one step further than me, which I don't feel as strongly about. I think the 3-3s should go around the rim. I don't feel the need to separate the 4-4s from the 4-3s.
Got you.
Mhm.
I got you. So looking at the 3-3s and just putting them,
That's why just
Towards-
having like the X and the Y
Yeah.
axis.
Like on the
and
outside corridor.
3-3s are on that, yeah, like an L, and all the 3-3s are,
kind
and
of,
anything inside of that is.
yeah, let me see.
I
what
didn't do
my,
both organics, I don't do
I
those
think what we're
dimensions.
just dealing with is just visual representation.
But
See what looks good.
Let's make it as complicated as possible, it's really
I mean,
confusing.
at this point, you
It's
could
hard to
do
see Ben.
the 4-4 in the corner, the 3-3.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, what you're really doing is a
yeah,
2x2 inside the 2x2.
inside, correct.
That's okay.
True.
Um,
The only thing I'm feeling strongly about is 3-3s not being quite as high. The rest, I don't care about.
Now, I've done them where we actually change, based on the result, change the grid, which meant it changed how you displayed it.
So Sharon, is this all gonna translate somehow into what you have to do?
Yeah, they should come up here. I have a question is, do you have this recorded in any sort of an
Yes.
electronic
Spreadsheet.
fashion?
It's in a
Okay.
spreadsheet.
I know you have the spreadsheet,
Well, that's,
but that's, it
Do
lists
you-
them by the ranking, I
do you have
guess.
the spreadsheet?
Yeah, I
Friday?
do, I do.
Okay, we even,
Yeah.
in the spreadsheet that was sent out today,
Yeah.
look over here, see,
Yeah.
look at the column out there.
Yeah.
We even have the quadrant that it goes in and
Okay.
the title of the quadrant. So it would just be a matter of picking off there and, pasting them onto this 2x2. And try, I would say you could try it both ways. Try it, David's suggestion, then try even separating
Mhm.
3-4, 4-3 from, the four fours.
Yeah, hot mic.
But, but again, we're not trying to say even among the four fours, we're not trying to say which is the most important four. Right?
Oh, I'm
That's-
so sorry.
They're all just in a bucket.
I think so. I mean, we can try a couple of ideas. You know, we'll try it a couple of ways and see. Also, to fit all of that on a page, too. You know, wanna do that, or consider like a shortened, you know, a phrase maybe that,
Yeah.
attaches back to the full action.
Right.
So,
So we have a picture of, which is nice, we're trying to picture how this gets represented. The last piece about how we work with the high highs, the one that sits up in that fourth quadrant, and this is an example, and I just asked Sharon if she's got better ones.
Got it here.
But this is just simply saying, by each of these groupings, which of those high highs are we doing? So again, I think we have to denote what's in progress and what we continue. So this might be the way that you combine them all on a single chart that shows what's happening near term. So if we like Sharon's thought about putting the action items up front in each section, displayed in the grid, just for that section, that might be a nice way to introduce the value and the feasibility. Are we good?
Mhm.
Does everybody feel good that that's a pretty decent way to prioritize it?
Yeah, I like it.
All right, and I like the fact that it's going to imply that this be reviewed every year, or, you know, it fits right into implementation tracking.
okay.
So,
It's like the capital plan.
All right, so
Fluid is gonna change, but
Yeah.
these
So
are
we
all the
can try-
three threes.
These are all the 3-3s that I've just removed, so everybody can take a look.
Okay, so
Where we
this is
put them.
David's suggestion of
Yeah.
of giving a little more attention to something that had a 4-3 or 3-4. I like that idea.
Oh, you're gonna lose one here.
Oops.
How many 3-3s were there, Mary?
What do you feel?
4, 8, 20.
8,
Is there an
20.
extra word?
20?
Did you have an extra whiteboard? Let's just put it on the base.
I will.
Do you want me to grab another phone?
Mary, are you
Yeah,
all
no
set, or do you
problem.
need, do I need to get one?
Yes.
Should have
Okay.
3-3.
We're 21.
Quadrant at all, but.
I can steal one of these right here,
Okay, I'll get an easel.
and just deal with one.
So another question while you're doing that, I
So
see
there's
in
30
this
that remain.
spreadsheet, there are some red, there are some that are red, for example. Does that mean that they're not decided, or?
That,
I have 21,
I'm gonna look at this.
If I remember correctly.
That's your, I'm pretty sure that's
Yes,
your.
that's it.
One of
Yeah.
those where.
That was one I think I had
One end wasn't
a
like
question on,
taken out of our
wetland resources
tree, which means
or two, and I think I went with that. I
that's
think
why I think-
when I was going through, it
That's
was a
why I
note to
think
myself
it's-
that I hear.
I think we could hash it out on the 3-3s and figure out, do we put it,
Okay.
they belong,
that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think that was what David's final point was. He wasn't sure that a 3-3 should even be in that quadrant.
Yeah, but that's where I think we
Or
should
maybe it
revisit
should
the,
be in
we
the
should, it
quadrant.
should, either should be or it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then what are you gonna take it down? Are you gonna reassess feasibility, or are you gonna reassess? You know, I feel like 3-3s, you know how like you have like scoring matrices, like, hey, evaluate yourself, but you can't give yourself a 3.
Right.
You're either good at it or you're not good
Yeah,
at it.
yeah.
It's like the same thing, right?
Or you can't give everybody straight A's.
Hey,
I-
Bri,
Yes.
if we have 20 or 21 3-3s, would it make sense, rather than reconstitute the chart, would it make sense to go through what we're considering the problem children, or the mediocrity of 3-3, and really hash out if it should belong in the upper right quadrant, or should we reevaluate either the feasibility level or the impact level, so that it can either go to the do later or the consider section?
Just for the 3-3s?
Just for the 3-3s. We take all 20, rather than reconstituting a chart, we just say, hey, can we actually feasibly look at these and hash it out as a team?
Yep.
And then say, does anyone feel it's either higher impact or higher feasibility, or lower feasibility or lower impact? Or does it actually, should it sit in the top right, you know, with either a score of a 3 or a 4?
Okay, let's start that exercise.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Rather than trying to like come up with a 3D image chart, you know.
Well, no, I agree. I don't wanna do that other than to give everybody a feel
out of the
for
way?
how many are left.
Sure.
If it stays
All right.
3-3, where does it go
Let's look at-
visually?
Can't, it's just like scoring yourself. You know, you can score yourself with a 5, you can't pick a 3. You're either good at something or you're not good at something. So you're either gonna be a 4 or you're gonna be a 2.
Maybe. Okay.
Here's another one right here. All right, let's look at water resources.
Okay?
And let's start,
Margo?
let's,
Water resources, which one?
well, look at the first
There's
three
one in
things.
it. So it's
First tab.
is it the continue to monitor emerging
Yes.
contaminants?
Yep.
Okay.
That still feel like a 3-3.
So the impact is a 3 and the feasibility is a 3.
Can I ask a question? When we have like continue, like an action is already happening,
It's already feasible.
Yeah.
Well,
we're-
does that really need to be in the mix?
I asked that question before.
We have a lot of continue.
I think
Margo
it-
actually liked the
I think it
continue.
does. This is my humble opinion. Everybody's opinion is important on this. I think it does, because we've ranked it relative to the same way we were rated everything else, but we're gonna mark continue. We're gonna mark it as it's in the high, so we wanna keep it moving.
So I would argue that it's a high feasibility if we're already doing it. So instead
That's
of
what it
being a
is. It's
3-3,
a high.
it should be a 3-4.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's feasible. It may be a huge, I think we need to be careful of undoing what we've already scored.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
in love
Yeah,
with this.
it may also not be a high impact. It could be consistent that we're doing it and we continue to do it, but because it's something that needs to get done, it may not yield this a substantial impact, but it is something that
So then
has
that,
to be a,
This is something
Continue.
that's hard to do, but it's important to do.
Mhm.
That's why it's 3-3.
I question are really trying to adjust the 3-3s. I mean, I don't know how we depict it, but
How do-
I think it's okay to stay as a 3-3.
I'm just trying to get everybody comfortable as we step back and look at the board.
Yep.
I'm okay with trying to graphically display it different from the 3-3s. Is everybody
Can
comfortable?
it have like a blowout since it's complex? Could to Sharon's point, it's hard to put this all on one page. Do you have like
An inset or just a...
a bubble out on page 3-3s?
So if you had this quadrant of four quadrants, and then you take the upper right quadrant only, Joyce, I think this is where you're going, and then you then have an additional page further splitting out that one quadrant.
Yep, that's-
oh, like you're taking a microscope to
Like an
that
inset
quadrant.
or, yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
like a out, you know,
And then
a
you'd have
pop
four
up or a
quadrants,
pop out.
a 4-3. Yeah, let's go.
It's really a way
Just
to
for that
display
one
it.
quadrant.
Just for that one, because then you give specifics around it. Yeah, that makes sense.
It sort of acknowledges it's the messy middle, right? Right, by giving it its own page.
Yeah,
Well, you mean giving the 3s its own page?
no.
No, like, you're
Giving
like,
the upper right quadrant its own page.
yeah.
So after you've done the 4, then you zero in on this one quadrant, and you have 4-4, 4-3, 3-4, and 3-3.
But here's the suggestion that we had, instead of displaying this with everything combined, to do it by water resources, ocean, wet and
Right.
wild, that as the lead into the section. The intro to the section would just be those action items
Okay.
in the 2x2 that introduce the section.
So you're saying that we're gonna naturally do that zeroing in on each one of the
Section.
resource sections?
Yes.
So like, yeah, okay.
How many, are there 3 different colors, so that means 3 different sections?
Yeah, there's, how many sections?
Three.
Well, there's,
Three.
how many tabs? One,
Not-
2, 3, 4, 5 tabs. That means 5 sections?
Okay.
Yeah, but we're talking about the systems themselves, right?
The broad colorization is the system itself that follows the actual LPC manual.
Yeah.
And then the subcategories within are housing or waste management or transportation, which are denoted on each tab.
So we might even get more granular in those subsections.
Right, which is why I
Okay.
color-coded
Yeah.
the tabs to
Yeah.
go with the
I
systems.
think if we try to display it at this level, it would be way too confusing, hard to digest.
Like at this high level.
At this high level. The only one I may summarize to is the high highs. And one way, that's why I'm gonna come up with this, time series chart is a nice, this might be a way to bring them together for just those that are high highs. Those that are, you're working on now and those that we're saying should be started. So you give special attention to these at that point. So, Joyce, oh, I don't know if we lost Joyce, but I think it accomplishes what Joyce said, but to do it system by system.
I'm here,
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm here.
I would suggest we have Sharon do it system by system.
All right, so the recall, again, I'm sorry for all my attempted monkey wrenches. I think the 5 tabs sometimes combine things that are a bit dissimilar.
Yeah.
The cultural, economy, and housing. Cultural heritage is listed as the same system as housing. I think that's a stretch. And I had a couple other examples, but
Culture, yeah. You're talking about the tap.
Bottom.
right?
the 5 tabs sometimes combine somewhat dissimilar items. So as
But
a way
would-
to,
Just because they're all under community
But
systems.
they're under community systems.
Wouldn't Brian's sug-
maybe that doesn't matter.
Well, but you can move that lock stock into another system if that's. your
Well, but
preferred zone.
Sharon's got the whole thing organized by those.
Yeah.
It always seemed a little clunky, but it's still, it's okay. It's something that would be tough to reinvent at this point.
And if I may add, if just actually, because it is all laid out, and we're just trying to keep consistent with moving forward with how they are, I don't know if the audience is going to look at something with your knowledge in knowing that separation or that, the differences. They'll just look as it is into those
But
groupings.
there is traceability with this. If we did decide that one of them belonged
Yeah.
in another system, what you're doing is taking the actions and all of the attribution with it and moving it to another section. So that's why the traceability is so helpful.
Okay.
So I suggest if, as long as everybody is comfortable, or is there any of these action items that you look at and say, oh, that doesn't feel right?
So you're gonna have 5 separate pages of this 2x3?
Think about it as an introduction into the section, into the system section. Right, Sharon, is that what you're saying?
But these are all in the actions section, the action and
But they're the actions
implementation.
that belong to the system.
But is it still gonna be in section 7 or somewhere else?
Yeah.
That's a question for discussion, is because right now, the actions are in, I'm just looking here.
Are we talking about the actions that are the spreadsheet
There-
pasted in?
No, in the layout, so from here forward, we have to work from the layout.
Yeah.
We're not going back to the Word version, so in section 4 of the layout, it says community goals, objectives, and actions. Right now, that's where they live. They're just, you know, and they're by system. Yes, they are, I believe they are. I mean, I'm gonna flip to that right now. If I can. So the question is, do you want that to be repeated again? And, you know, in like a separate section that's called an action plan implementation? Or do you want them, you know, do you want them to be listed twice? Which is fine. And,
we had talked about that, I think we had. I'm looking at the table of contents right now on page 2.
yep,
You have it in your table of contents. You have it twice.
we do.
So,
It's up to you, though.
and
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I think we've established that I'm not out of line by saying that it read much better to have goals, objectives, and actions all together,
Sure.
built out by those natural systems, built environment, and community systems. So that's section 4. And then it made sense to have action plan and implementation schedule, because that has all that's kind of the governance section in section. I don't think there's anything wrong with having this stuff twice, but stuff that's so dense, it made sense, we had covered this, to have the actions as part of the goals and objectives. Otherwise, it's just too spread out.
Right.
And I
It
would-
takes you too long to get there,
And I would
yes.
suggest where
Yep.
they're repeated again for the scheduling, we really focus on that upper right-hand quadrant. Because those are the most important to work on.
I think it makes sense in having it twice when I'm just looking at this table of contents, again, page 2, section 7, action plan and implementation schedule. I mean, you have overview, tracking, transparency. When you're talking about meeting schedule, performance measures and things like that, it's gonna make sense to repeat those actions again there, perhaps in a different presentation, but you gotta have what you're tracking there.
Right. Right. That's fine. And that's the way it's set up right now. So we can look for, we'll look for a way to present this
Right.
that is more, is visual.
Right, and
Well-
it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be in any order, or if there's, whatever order you think makes sense. It
Well-
doesn't have
So
to-
in section,
Go ahead.
I'm just looking at water resources in section 4. And you've got a whole list of what the actions are. They're not rated, they're not ranked or anything. It's just a list.
That's why this grid could be in that section as a way to show them ranked, because then you would show the score. You'd use the grid, use the actions. That's the whole point here. That would be the way to introduce the value and flexibility concept and what we think is.
So there'll be the weighted prioritization presented in each part of part 4. Yeah.
That didn't come through, Joyce.
You're breaking up somewhat.
I'm echoing what Brian was saying, is that the weighted visual presentation of the actions will be part of, it won't just be a list for each
Right.
section in section 4.
Slide into it.
And I think that with a bit of an explanation, nothing too deep, so that the community understands how we came to these numbers and how the process works.
I was just
And,
going to
yeah.
suggest that.
Just a brief
That's all it
explanation.
needs is a little explanation of how you got there. What's in there
Oh,
now
cool.
are some placeholder text that can be replaced with what you're actually doing, how you did it briefly, and how it can be used as a
Help
tool.
with that.
So in
I
section
definitely,
4,
yeah.
in section 4, as we go through each system, we will have the actions for that system presented in this matrix.
Could
And
you
those
do a
are-
write-up for Sharon on how we got there?
If-
Yes.
If you take a
But-
look at what's there now, it would be just like a, X out this and
Right.
include
Section
this.
4, the draft you sent, the
No,
most
it's,
recent draft,
it's section 7.
section
Really,
7.
it's
But-
just adding a paragraph to explain.
But aren't you talking about in section 4, doing some,
No, they would still be just
a
a
list?
list of
Just a list?
goals,
No,
objectives, and
we're saying
actions.
put this grid in section 4.
well,
Oh, I thought Joyce, I'm sorry, I thought Joyce was
yeah,
saying
we're saying
something
different.
No,
I guess we
we're
are.
saying,
That's what
yeah,
I'm saying.
correct, Sharon. We're saying, I am agreeing with Brian.
Okay.
That we should have the visual prioritization in section 4 by each system, by natural system, built environment, community systems.
Okay, but in section 4 right now, we don't have one of those 5 tabs. If there's 3 items on the tab, water resources, ocean, etc. Right now, it's just water resource actions. It's not the whole tab.
That's what, if you look at the spreadsheet, wouldn't it be just these action items from that tab that go into that section?
So right now, I think on the tab is I can't flip back and forth quickly enough. Water resource, ocean resource, and wetland resource are all in the same tab. But
The same tab in the spreadsheet?
in the spreadsheet.
No, they're in 2 different tabs.
Water resources and ocean, wetland, and OS are in 2 different tabs.
Okay.
Are you looking at what Christine sent out today?
If I may, I think,
Well,
Yeah.
let's clear David.
well, that's what I'm saying with this, I think it was just designed as a worksheet. That's how the information was just laid out. Not that it really goes together other than within whatever system. I think if is that correct, Sharon? Because this was taken from your original. It was just how the tabs were set up, just to perform as a worksheet.
Just to
correct?
get it
They're
out.
aligned-
That's all.
They're aligned though,
That's
aren't
all.
they?
Okay, so
Aren't
There
they
wasn't
aligned?
any categorization behind it.
But
other
aren't
than-
they aligned to?
They
In the live design on the link right now, this all makes sense. Like you have economy, you have goal, economy objectives, economy actions listed. You know, like things are all separated out categorically. I think you have to look at the live link. This is how this,
Gotcha.
for better or worse, Ty and Bond has set this up. Which actually is my question, Sharon. I'm fine with it, but I'm gonna have to go before the select board and defend it. This horizontal slide version that looks like an Adobe program, and I'm cool with the live link. This is the design of it, correct?
Yes, it is. And there are two versions. One is a comments version,
Yep.
where you
No,
can,
I get it. I
and the
get it.
other
I
is-
get it. I
is-
get it.
is the
I
actual
get it.
final
I'm gonna,
layout.
I will defend it. I will defend it. I'm fine with it. It makes a lot of sense. It's a live link. We should have been here 2 years ago. It's great. We're here now. Good work. In terms of a cloud-based document for review. I will leave it to your expert designers. The design is weird, like a little bit. You'll get there. I mean, like some of the graphic design is a little off, but you'll get there. It's okay. I think the overall format, but it's there's going to be feedback on this because it's different than some people are used to. But that's what we got.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some of the kerning and some of the graphic design is strange, but that's okay. You'll get there. Yeah.
Going back to the visual representation, with one slight revision, my previous comment stands. Section 4, natural systems, has 5 items: water resources, which we put by itself on a tab, and then ocean, wetland, wildlife, and open space, I believe, are all on the second tab. In section 4, they're all under natural systems, presented resource by resource with its actions. So I'm just trying to understand.
Or then you could combine those two tabs.
Well, if we're sticking with Sharon's.
Are you live document, David? Because I see each one has its own slide. Ocean, water resources has goal, water resource objective actions. Next
That's right.
page is ocean
Can somebody
resources.
resend the link to that?
Goal,
slide,
ocean-
that document?
Is
I'm looking at
ocean,
that.
ocean resource.
I can't find it.
Joyce, all I was pointing out was
I can't get it to load.
each one of those 5 under natural resources has its own list of actions.
Send what you sent.
Yes.
Are you?
Yes.
So
I can't find
are we going to do a matrix, a 2 by 2, for each one of those
Got it.
5?
I see
Or are
what
we
I
going
got-
to do a matrix for that group of 5?
yes.
Okay.
I see what
So that means
you're saying.
the only wrinkle is we use, as Mary just pointed out, we use that matrix just sort of as a tool. And it happens that the first 2 tabs belong together.
Okay,
And as we list the matrix with those 5 things, the action items that we have each little card, we need to indicate whether it's a water resources or an open space.
but aren't they, they're indicated that way in the spreadsheet, so they have to be assembled into the document that way. They're in the spreadsheet as open
Yeah,
space.
they're-
I know, but as you go through the text, they're in there. But if you're doing the visualization, it would be nice if you have all the little cards under.
Organized like section 4. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and these are the natural systems actions. But as you look at the 2 by 2 matrix, and you're reading one of the things, you need to know if that's referring to water resources or to ocean or.
So what you're saying though is you want to zoom in within natural systems for water resources. You only want to see the 2x2 for water resources in natural systems.
Well, you could do it that way, but then you'd wind up with
Too
five.
many.
That's what I'm,
Five.
yeah, so,
So, but on the one, that contains all of the natural system actions, as I'm assuming you'll have a little card for each one of the actions on the 2x2 matrix that will lead off the natural systems section? Is that what you're suggesting?
What?
So you get to section 4.
Right.
I'm
And
there.
the first section, well, the first word will be a little bit, a statement about how this scoring thing works.
And then you've got natural
Sharon,
systems.
is that what you were suggesting? That it be led off with explanation of what the matrices are?
Well, I was suggesting that precede wherever this lives, whether it be in section 4 or section 7, that there be some explanation of
So section 4
how
would start.
you got to where the
You'd have that
prioritization.
explanation.
Yeah.
And the first section is natural
Natural
systems.
systems.
And you'd have the matrix, the 2x2 matrix of all of the actions.
Well, the
Uh.
reformatting that would have to be done if we go this way. Right now, just under natural systems, you've got 5 different sets of actions. And we're talking about replacing that with one set of actions gridded out 2 by 2 for those 5.
No, what you're talking about is placing all
All 5,
sections
yeah.
of the natural systems on one matrix at the beginning of that section. And all I'm saying is,
Identify within.
yeah, you have here, we've done it by color coding on the different cards, the different ones. And what you need to do, I would think, is as somebody looks at this matrix and sees different action items, there should be some identification of whether this action item is referring to water resources or wetlands.
Which is what you're seeing right there, some type of,
Yeah.
in that roadmap. There's this one page 26, and it could be just as simple as a change of color. On page, I can look right, it was 26 or 28. Existing community assets, just so people can follow along, you have natural environment, built environment, and community networks. Just change the color coding throughout so they know the broader system, what they're looking at a glance, a visual complement to it.
I think it could work that way.
Yeah.
I personally, from what I've seen so far, would go a little different. I think we have a nice, clean list of actions in section 4, without any ranking or priority. To me, that's very easy. Just leave it like that, just as Sharon's draft has it, and then get into all of this stuff, insert whatever groupings we want to do in section 7.
And to follow up on that, if I could, one thing, if you don't do that and you put it all in section 4, one thing you're gonna be missing that I think is an important component that you have right now is who's the responsible party? So you're gonna be losing that, and I think that would be seen as, an omission, in terms of certification. So I would recommend that if you want to keep just the display of all the actions, keep them in section 4, and then have section 7 be how it's implemented, and we do the grid and have it displayed visually and so forth.
And maybe the section 7 does it by natural systems with its 5 subcategories. Maybe that's separate then from the next one.
Or you could do this and combine, you've got natural, built, and community systems all combined in their their quadrant. I don't see why that couldn't be displayed that way. They're all high priority.
Are there natural systems
So
is
by
the
high
first,
priority, and they're
built
color
systems
coded.
is the second.
And again, to just
Community
visually
systems,
follow,
just those
just
3.
the same
The
way here.
colors can,
Also with the
Yeah.
implementation, because I just sent that to you too,
I
just as an
have
example.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the thing is
I
to,
can't get
to
to the
visually follow that way, and then also with putting, you know, the who's responsible or whatever in the implementation part. And I think that's a natural segue into tracking, implementation and tracking, to be able for people to understand how it's moving forward.
So
Yeah.
do we need to put these tabs into these three?
Probably,
So,
in section 7.
well, even in section 3, I still can't get to the file.
Oh, you can't?
Four, rather, 4. Well, because it's looking for me to set up a new Dropbox account and.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's, I'm sorry, I sent that, that's for photos.
Either.
Send the Dropbox invite.
That's for, I sent that,
I just sent you
that's for
some-
photos.
I just sent you this.
Sorry, I was,
I still,
I can't get the plan to load on my iPad, though, I have to look at my phone.
It's because of the Wi-Fi here.
Yeah, well,
Was it
I'm
an
running
email?
my,
I just sent it
this
maybe
off
2
my
minutes
phone
ago.
now, too, so that
It's
still
still
isn't.
not coming up on
no.
there?
I still think you leave
Open up, it's in the threads.
section
It just,
4
it's
as is
blank, it's like blah.
Okay.
and mess around with section 7.
there is a question of, I mean, just available time or budget to do this. So for this draft stage, we're really limited, we're trying to reserve budget for,
To do the thing.
to do the final, you know, based on input, comment, et cetera. So if I could caution you against like major changes, certainly something like color, additional photos, you know, to get the action plan correct and in there, at this stage is more important than getting it like perfect, beautiful. That would be the final, if you can bear with it.
So if we don't list the matrix as leading off each section in chapter 4 or whatever, and put it into chapter 7, one of the things that you said, which is key, is the only place that it indicates who we've identified as being the responsible
Yeah.
person
Jump up and down.
is on the matrix,
The table.
the spreadsheet.
But that could be
You sent
part of
out.
the appendix, right? So that,
Yes.
Well, I think, that needs to be part,
You just had to walk
that needs
far
to
enough
be
across
part
the
of
room
the
to pick up the
That, I agree, that has to be
implementation
part of that.
in
Part of the job
section
description.
7.
I still don't want to give up on using this as, this 2x2 as the lead in to the 3 sections. All we have to do is go through and align the action items to one of the 3.
If you,
I don't know why that's complex.
but can't you do that in section 7?
Well, I still think it's going to be hard to look at this when everything is combined.
Right, so in section 7, okay, back up. Section 4, you've gotten all your list of action items. Now you get into really doing something with those action items in section 7. First, you take your 3 major systems, natural, built, and community. And in each one of those 3,
Do that.
You do
Okay, so
that.
you're just saying, put that same slide in 7.
Yeah.
Don't use it in.
And just focus it on the
That's fine.
specific systems.
And with me poking around at it live and at a distance from you guys, it is, as it is now, as Sharon has it set up in section 4, the action items do read pretty cleanly,
right, that's what I was trying to say.
to give it credit. And
But in 7,
point
go
of
after it.
having the
But do it
prioritization
but
later
do it
may
system
actually
by
be
system.
more clear than we thought, so.
3 systems, even though there are 5 tabs or something, 3 systems.
Right, and then the 4th would be the timeline or something that focuses on all 3 of them combined for the highs.
Hey Joyce, can you repeat that last like 10 seconds, 15 seconds?
Yeah, that living with it live here online and at a distance from you guys, the way the action items are listed in section 4 right now reads pretty clearly. Like you flip through and you're like, ooh, I can see the actions for each one, for each section, you know, it reads pretty cleanly. So maybe having the visual prioritization being in 7 and kind of linked to the implementation may make good sense. I'm sort of retracting what I was saying before, because where the rubber meets the road is like it doesn't make sense for, say, you know, on the ocean resources tab to have, there's only 3 items, right? Or wetland resources, there's only 2. So it doesn't make sense to have a visual grid there. But when you have the 3 tabs, like David was saying, natural resources, you know, built systems and whatever the other one is.
Community.
Yeah, when you have it in 7, then you're gonna have sort of a meaningful visual plot for each of those 3 subjects that is then tethered to the timeline. It is actually cool to look at.
Breaking up.
Yeah, always.
I think she said it looks cool.
Cool, that's what I heard.
Okay.
Go ahead,
We'll
Sharon.
acknowledge
Yeah,
that,
it looks cool. Goal, objectives, actions. It reads cleaner than I expected, to be honest.
Okay.
one thing we can definitely do, and I can see leafing through, you know, is doing this by color is one way to, like, really, like you say, Mary, and we don't have the action plan right now, it isn't clear that way. It's saying system is housing, so it's not, he doesn't have it right here. So we can clearly break it out. We'll do it this way. We'll figure out a way to do it, and we can match it to color.
Yep.
And then you'll have the ability too, with the online version, to be able to flip back and forth if somebody wanted to.
We need to
Yeah.
do the tabs, and the 5 tabs that we have in the spreadsheet, that you're gonna pull those scores from, you need to have it in this order, right, the 3 systems? Or can you pull that out?
Well, we can, it would certainly be helpful if somebody wants to do it or has time to do it, but if you can't, then, you know, we'll do it. But it would save time for us.
A different graphic idea other than this.
Well, no, we're not talking about that page just yet. We're
Yeah.
just
Just
trying to
organize
get
them
her-
with 3.
Organize it, so when she is going to pull the scores and the action items out of here, she's going to one tab for all of the natural systems.
It'll,
We don't have it organized by,
Okay.
it will make it a lot easier for the designer if he's got it ready to, you know, ready to go, to confess. It's just, it's gonna take somebody else a lot of time.
Though I think Mary's got such a good handle on it that,
I
You
can do
will work.
So we're gonna end up with just 3 tabs.
yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I can have it down.
Okay.
Natural built community.
Because
And
then they
then-
can
and then
color
we can-
code it, then the
yeah.
designer can color code it off the tabs and then put everything in.
And then we'll figure out
then we have
the grid.
3 individual grids, and then the remaining question is gonna be, how do you then bring them together to communicate what the implementation plan is for, I would argue, something like this, which is the highs?
Yes, I would do it across systems. I wouldn't like, you know, because
Right.
I think, yes, it's something along the lines of what you have there, because your actions, like, everybody wants to know, what are the highest priority, regardless of the system. Who cares about that at that point? They want to know what to do first.
If you still have those, even if it's a high priority, if you just still have the color coding matching the theme, then you'd be able
Yes.
to decipher not just the priorities, but what systems specifically are in those priorities.
Yeah.
Right, so you don't have to have it
Yes.
layered like this, it would just be
It'll be by
intermingled.
color. Yes, and that's something we can do this month, I think. We can get that.
And is it clear in the way the actions are worded that anything that is ongoing or in progress right now says continue? So, do we need some consistency to say,
I
for
think
anything
it's
that's in
probably,
progress,
I
make
think it's
sure.
probably 80-90% right now, so I think it's not worth messing with.
So it'll be
I
clear
think-
for
I
the
think
ones that
it's-
aren't worded with continue.
Yeah, I think you could probably find a few that could be reworded. I don't think that's a priority right now.
Not a priority, but that might be one of these final looks at this.
Fine tune.
And that way, we don't have to mess around with another shape coding or color coding of what we're saying continue, but it's clear.
Yeah, I think it's fine, yeah.
Okay.
So on the spreadsheet you guys did, going through, especially because one of the things that Sharon's pointed out, that for getting approval, having responsible people, we have a lot of to be determined and other things, how do we fill that in? And there's actually, I've been going through, and there's a couple of places where the person we've designated as being responsible doesn't work. So, you know, I'd be willing to take a stab at that.
I do have a suggestion, because for the last meeting, just because of time, we just want to concentrate just on the numbers, even though at the beginning we were discussing the leads. My suggestion is everyone take the spreadsheet that you just got from Christine, fill in who you think the leads are, and then I'll combine it.
Okay.
But
Combine
yeah.
it, combine it as you're putting in the
before-
3 tabs.
Right, so that's the last input before I reduce it down to the 3 tabs and then send it to you. But I need everyone's input by, like,
Well,
End
it
of the
does have
week.
the best handle on this particular item.
okay, Ed, it's all on you then.
I'll also help out with
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So why don't between, Ed
Yeah.
and Christine?
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah,
it's just,
because, you know,
Sounds
there's, like, there's one of them that's, I think, that we have designated the Harwich Conservation Trust as the lead. It's, we can't designate a
No.
nonprofit, non-town affiliated.
we
I
can't.
mean,
But,
we could.
but aren't some of the continue things we have in that same category though, where we're not necessarily, the town isn't necessarily paying for it or paying for all of it?
But in developing the management plans for the 6 ponds,
That's Conservation Trust, right?
that's, we say it's a conservation trust. They may do a lot of work for us, but it has to be a town person or a town organization that's responsible
That's
to
accountable.
see.
Okay, so are you saying that we have to assign a town body
Yeah,
or just, or
Identify.
get rid of the action item?
well,
No,
you don't,
you
I
don't
don't
get-
think we wanna get rid of the
Yeah.
action.
Well, that's what I'm
Fine.
asking, but aren't some of the action items very little town and more private?
Or nonprofit.
Not too much.
No,
Some, a couple are, but not many.
yeah.
I think when it comes to the leads, the suggestion of Christine and Ed, they seem to have the most comfort level and the most expertise in those
Yeah.
areas on who would be it. And that would also help me as far as not getting it from
Yeah.
10 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
And just have it from Christine and from Ed as far as those
it's
leads.
like
I'm good.
the revisions,
Sounds
The
like
work-
a Cape Root
the
section.
management plan and the
We're
design of
having 9
the
people
Bank
talk.
Street, redoing the Bank Street box. The person, the organization that's done that and contracted for it was Conservation Trust.
Right.
But how that interfaces with the, clean water management plan is the responsibility of the town, and so we had to, one, negotiate on one hand with the Conservation Trust on what they did, and there was some disagreements about that. And then the town had to take, it was the one responsible for getting it approved by Mass DEP.
yeah.
So we got credit for it in our CWMP, you know, and, you know, it was important things to have done, but it wasn't,
I'm not arguing that, I guess I just have a little bit of, and I don't wanna belabor the point, I just have some heartburn about having all these action items with continue, because that really, it's already happening. So why are we spending time and effort if they're gonna continue?
Because it still requires resources in
Yeah.
planning.
And it's
fits-
important to identify.
It's in the context of keep doing this before you start something else.
Don't drop the ball.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, then there's a lot of things that aren't gonna get done, that really need to get done.
Well,
Like,
That's-
I'm just saying.
That's what
Because
the
if you
message
look
is.
at water resources, it's more continued than anything else. And if you look at some of the other, you know, they're not, so,
Yeah, there's like 3 things that are not continue within water resources.
right.
Or 4. It's develop, there's a pursue implementation, there's adopt a townwide fertilizer management bylaw, and adopt landscaping best practices.
I guess what I'm asking is that even though we have 8 different people, 8 different departments, say just a number, I don't know if that's right or wrong, for different action items, even though it may look like 8 pots, it's not necessarily 8 pots, it's one big pot that's coming down to quote-unquote 8. And if we keep continuing things, and I'm not saying they're not important, but is that going to tie our hands in getting other things
things
done,
done.
like housing and things like that we're talking about that aren't continued.
It comes down to scheduling. If you're doing those things and they're equally important to housing, then where you gotta make a decision as to what slows down.
I know, but who makes that decision?
The
What's more
select
important?
board, the
Select board.
planning.
Well,
We're all
It's gonna vary.
powerful.
It's gonna vary.
Hold on a sec, go ahead, Joyce.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't want to overstate our power. I think a lot of our work is getting this itemized and listed as action items and in the quadrants. I hear you, Barbara, but like, we're not that powerful.
I think it
You
is
know.
important to keep in context, keep doing these things because we think they're important. Now, we may have thought too many things are important, and it's up to Christine to do them all. No, but there's a prioritization that happens
Okay,
when you
so-
schedule.
right,
So I just looked at, the wastewater thing, and it says, one of them is continue to acquire new private wastewater treatment systems to be designed for future connection to larger public systems. Are we requiring that now? I don't know of any regulation or bylaw that has that as a requirement. So it's not a continue, it's something that we should be requiring.
So it should just say require.
Or
Yeah.
evaluate, or consider, or.
No, it should, we should require that,
Okay.
you know.
I don't know, that would be a health department question probably, if it's already in place or not.
I'm not aware that it is.
I feel like we
can
went
ask
down,
that.
I do feel like we went down the continue path about 6 meetings ago.
Yeah.
Because I remember we had a big debate on it and Dave was struggling with it and then we just said, we can't fight City Hall, no pun. But like, there's some things that are just gonna be on there that are gonna take up resources and time and we have to acknowledge it. So that in the prioritization, in the planning part of it, and the scheduling part of it, someone needs to make that decision. That's not our decision to make. I think that's what we said. Could be wrong.
Convince me.
That's the right way to look at it.
As a side note, it appears that the impact feasibility ratings on the continued items is not particularly high and will not just jeopardize the higher ratings of things such as housing.
Yeah.
Barbara, but what can be done, with the decision-making process is we have integrated a tracking system to have that explanation or accountability back to the public, where that's what a missing piece was.
that's
That's what a
feedback
missing piece,
on,
but we're
yeah.
setting it up, so not to schedule, but to track and report back.
that's my
and that's the
concern,
missing
is
piece.
that
It's gonna get lost
if
in the
everything's
fray.
continued, then we haven't listened to them.
So now we have a measure of reporting accountability that might help to, as far as your concerns.
Because that could drive the masses to have those, conversations at town hall and show up and force on the subjects that matter. Because I feel like a lot of times people just don't know what's going on. And then they just wake up one day, they're like, wait, we prioritize what? So I think that's where that accountability piece comes in.
Okay.
It's gonna, I think as we go out to the public, this whole tracking system is gonna be a point that should be hammered home.
Yes.
So it's very central in people's thinking because I've hardly ever seen a tracking system that has actually been followed, and I'd love to see this be
Yeah.
different.
Done.
So I'd like to just emphasize it as we,
I think we can take one more look at how we worded the tracking to include the concept of feasibility and value, because we didn't have that concept when we first wrote it.
That's a good
And
point.
we could give it a little bit more teeth to say that in the evaluation, you really have to continue to look at both, and you have to make the hard adjustments on an annual, I think we said semi-annual, annual basis, but let's take a look at that and maybe give it more teeth.
It's a good takeaway.
And giving that knowledge back to the community is going to be very helpful. I think it will probably mitigate any frustration that they, at least that's the hope. That's the hope.
Yep.
so one of the items we dished off to Ed and Christine, I would also throw in that Sharon, as you're developing the visuals, you really should check in with Brian and Mary about that section 7.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep,
I will.
Actually, we're happy to do turns on this thing, if you wanna do interim, interim checks on it. I think we've made pretty good progress here.
Every once in a while.
What else do
Next,
we
what
need
do we
to
got,
write down?
Gary?
Are we rocking again? I'm just awesome at this.
And modest too, we know.
Yeah.
Where are we?
We have planning, so are we good with this topic? Do we feel good? Sharon, you feel good
I
about the
think I have
conversation?
a direction, yes.
Joyce, are you, since you're the remote one in, are you okay if we move on to the last piece here?
Absolutely. I am enamored of you guys. You guys are amazing. I'm just
Wicked.
glad to participate.
Yes, sir.
So what are we
That's
up to?
great.
I do wanna thank Mary for everything that she did this year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Brian.
And that was, it's getting sticky there for a little bit. I didn't know if we get through that item, but good stuff. All right, so moving on to,
That means we've all worked each other.
yeah. So we all exhausted each other.
Okay, I give
Move-
up. Have your
Moving on
way.
to section C, that's really, it's a battle of wills. Planning for future meeting dates, including town committee and community outreach.
So my point in including this is just, we just need to throw it against the wall here a little bit. We can work on the dates. But like, hot off the presses, I think I'm gonna see the select board Monday. I've been summoned, which is fine, which is great. And we have something good to show them. And then, we're gonna have to get to planning, and I wanted to get all your wisdom there. Could we throw it against the wall about who you want to take this out for the dog and pony show too, specifically committee-wise this summer? And I just want to keep talking with Sharon and Christine too about the dates for revision and, how those revisions are going to be gathered, which I presume is through the live link. And just keep talking about that because there's, summer is upon us.
Well, I think we also need to work backwards. When do we need to know if we're on the charter for that special town meeting? Do we have that?
We won't know.
We won't know that until early fall possibly, if
Okay.
they're gonna
Well,
decide to do one.
as a-
It can be that late.
It can be.
Making some assumptions, if they're looking at having a special town meeting, would probably be towards the end of October,
That's
beginning of
November.
November.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
October,
To
late
back up,
October.
say 45 days from October 15th to have our thing ready to be put into the special
So,
town meeting.
end of
where-
August, early September.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And some of us were saying that the Springtown meeting absolutely didn't make sense. And just the opposite, the Fall Town meeting absolutely does make sense. We should do all of our work, assuming it's gonna happen. It may not, but we should work as if.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well-
we go with the assumption that it's gonna happen.
Okay.
Right.
And then if it doesn't,
Cool.
we wait until the following spring.
So that gives us, if we work on the monthly schedule, that gives us basically 3 meetings to iron this out. So, right?
No, June, July, August.
Oh,
Because we've had 45-day back that Ed's talking about, 15th of October, you're talking September 1.
So, yeah, we don't even get to the next meeting. So we have 2. Okay.
So,
I just also don't want to be criticized. I want to have so obviously we're going to engage planning. Could Ed and all our political savants, could everyone throw, who's going to want a special guest star appearance about this? I mean, obviously it's going to be open and available for comment, but I don't want to be, well, we're going to be criticized no matter what we do, but let's try to anticipate the criticism.
well, I think we need to, schedule up, once we get it reasonably put together, in the beginning of, in July and beginning of August, try and hit presentations to all the town committee meetings that are important.
Yeah.
Could you tell us which ones you think are important, just so we can throw it out there to the record? Because it's actually looking pretty darn good. Like when I spent some time with it this evening at a distance, it looks good. We're getting there.
I don't disagree with that at all, Joyce, but having sat there last night and witnessed them suddenly decide, we haven't seen the LPC at all, and we want them to come in, we may be right back where we were with the housing production plan when we.
Absolutely, no, yeah, I anticipate that, and it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the quality of the plan.
Oh,
There's a
no.
lot of other forces here.
But-
So that's why I'm going like, yep, next week, ready, bring it.
Do we also
I mean,
have
we
the-
absolutely maybe.
The new
So,
selectmen-
Ed, like, who do we have to be before? We've got to be before planning, who else?
Planning, conservation, zoning, board of
Zoning Board
appeals,
of Appeals,
health,
Wastewater.
wastewater, well,
we need to do.
the water department.
Yeah,
You have,
water commissioners, you mean?
yeah,
or-
the water
yeah.
commissioners, we should go in front
DPW.
of the cultural council and the historic.
Well, you can't go in front of the cultural council because we won't be meeting this summer, and
Okay, well, then,
I have
Yeah.
term limits and I'm done, and
okay, so.
nobody's stepped forward to continue it, so
Okay, so.
don't worry about them.
Historic commission, we probably wanna go in front of the housing trust.
Mhm.
All right.
You know, and then, you know,
Basically, everybody will
real
wait
estate and
with the
open space.
updates.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, so I'm gonna just make a blanket statement next week. I will work on some email for this, but based on our areas of expertise, I think I'll just assign you all,
Yep,
like your job, next 8 weeks is to get before this committee, and I'm just we'll just say it, like, this is what is gonna happen.
yep.
So, Yep.
Joyce, it's Mary. May
Yeah.
I ask also, at one time, you had asked Sharon if it was possible to develop a 7-slide, no more than 7-slide presentation that we could
It's still on my
take to
list.
each dog pony show. That's in the works?
It's on my list, to-do list, yes.
Okay.
amazing. To be honest, it's interesting. Yes, I would agree. We still need that, Sharon. Thank you. Maybe just because I've spent so much time with it, the slide format, I wasn't expecting it, but it's more digestible than I thought. But yes, we need the 7-slide DNP situation. But this is very clickable as the cloud-based format right now. So.
And I think once we just do a little color coding on it, like, I think
Yeah.
people will be able to follow it really well.
Yeah.
But it's still not something you easily present in a group setting.
No.
It's something that you
Yes.
let them look at, but the 7 pages is what you walk through.
I think we're
with these
setting
committee
ourselves up to have such, it's still in raw format. And to use that for a presentation, I don't think it bodes
I think-
positive.
We need both. We need both, is what you're saying.
Right,
We need
that's
both. Yep.
Sharon, what's, are you folks looking to, by the end of the month, having the draft finished?
Mm-hmm,
And-
yes, that's
and-
been our charge all along,
So,
including the 7 pages.
at that point,
Okay.
at that point, if we schedule to meet with the committees in July, we
Yes.
will have the
You'll-
final draft ready to prepare,
Yes,
so they can have that for review. And then the little 7-slide.
Do we go to them before?
mhm, yes, and I think I was asked also for an executive summary, and I've been holding off on that because we didn't have the action plan, so
Well, that is the
That's
7
where-
slides, right? Isn't
that's
that-
where this will come into play.
But when we say 7 slides, I think that is synonymous with executive summary.
Right,
Yeah.
Well,
or, no, it's really,
Yeah,
they are a little different.
Presentation of our process.
Executive summary, I'm sorry, would be a very shortened version of this document that you could use and hand out at town meeting
Yeah.
or to your
How
committees.
many
It's
pages are you talking about?
7 pages. It would be a very, very brief version of this.
a less visual
You could-
7-slider.
It's something you could take to
To the
the,
committee meetings.
you could
To
take to
get-
the Chamber of Commerce Executive Committee. meeting,
exactly.
to the,
Because-
there's a Harwich Men's Club or Harwich Women's Club or any, any
Yeah,
of
We're
those.
saying the same thing. I'm trying not to overly create too many documents.
Yeah,
And we can
The same
incorporate,
document is what you
yeah,
use to
yeah,
the committee.
yeah, yeah.
and we can incorporate some of the visuals from the plan into the executive summary, so when if people do go and read the whole thing,
Right.
Yeah.
they're gonna start to connect, oh, yeah, I've seen that, but reality is that most people, voters, will not be reading the whole plan. Some of your committees might, they'll be honing in on their section that's of their interest, but for the public, the general public that'll vote on this, a short executive summary is a useful tool at town meeting, plus a brief PowerPoint on what was the process, why did we do this, that kind of, brief explanation of why, why do this at all. So they kind of go hand in hand, but they're a little different. So, yes, it's on my list to do that this month as well.
I have another question or a topic. I know that you had asked for additional photographs.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, do we have other resources that can we get it from the website or for Chamber of Commerce or anything?
We
like that?
tried, and we did look at that, but there weren't a lot or enough.
So-
And so that's why you see grayed out boxes in this document. That's where we need additional photos.
I said, if
Yeah.
there's anything specific you need pictures, just email me, I'm happy to go out and capture them. I sent some.
I think Ed was
That's
doing
what
that
my
too.
next thing- the
I've been
suggestion
out
was.
taking pictures in
Yeah.
South Harwich and
It's-
West Harwich,
Nice.
where else?
We need photos of
So,
all the
And
villages.
I
Right.
just went through the
Yeah, just go through the draft.
draft, it mentions in the Harwich Center section, in the description, it talks a lot about the Congregational Church, so I have a nice picture of that, because,
Well, even like Pleasant Lake, it's just so much more beyond
No.
to represent so many of the other
Yeah.
villages would be so nice.
So, yeah,
For photos choice, did you say that you wanted all photos to send through you
Or
or
Dropbox.
just
You just
send
send
them?
it
Oh,
to
no, it's okay. I think with Sharon setting up the Dropbacks, I think we
in your email.
should consider it all our,
Working.
it should be all set up.
consider our assignment to take some
Perfect.
It sh-
I'll do a couple of
take
these
some
things.
photos and put them in the Dropbox.
Yeah, it should be easy and all set up for all of you to use. Ed, I know you want a little tutorial, so we can try it after the meeting. But it should be, all your emails are in there, so you should just be able to drag and drop. And if you have a location, or if you only take a handful and please identify the location,
sure, yeah.
right?
I'm gonna take
Or a
photo of
title,
the
caption.
Streets being torn up for the sewer lines. Which might be appropriate.
Do we have
Planning
any-
in action, man.
Sharon, have you thought about it at all if we want to include any historical photos?
Sure. Oh, sure.
I mean,
Yes, we definitely could.
and we keep talking about keeping our
Yeah.
village
Yes.
personalities and who we are and everything.
Absolutely. Oh, would love those.
Yeah,
We have like a map or two, but we would love historic
Like,
photos.
like the pictures I've taken in South Harwich is South Harwich Meeting House.
Yeah.
There's a very nice three-quarter cape on 28 that I've taken a picture of, and then the nice East Lake Victorian, which used to be Pam's pottery studio, Pam,
Right.
I forget her last name. I have lots of her pottery, but, and so, that's what I'm trying to capture.
What's the target?
It's West Harwich, a lot of the Captain's Row buildings.
Right, but I think some of the historic stuff, like,
Yeah.
if we have like
People post
buggies
them on-
and
yeah.
people, I mean, yeah.
People posted them on Old Timers and stuff, and like
Oh, yeah.
I'll put them back. I sent pictures from performance at the Junior Theater and, people and
Yes, I do have those.
baseball.
I did have a question about that. Have those been authorized for, like, reuse, their
Well, my
photos of
daughter
children?
wasn't thrilled about the one that she was in because she thinks she never looks good in photos, but we can pull that.
I had it come up in another town about
Yeah.
Photos of children.
Attribution.
I can talk to
Yes,
the
so has permission been granted
Yeah,
to
yeah.
use those?
No, I get
That's
that.
a big
Okay.
thing right
Yeah.
now.
I'll check with the theater and see if they just have some stock, because they have photos that they put out for.
Sharon, can you give us a target date for us procrastinators? When do you want to have?
I think Christine and I were talking about the 20th, because we need a good week.
Yeah.
I've got someone,
That's
get
good.
the
That's what I
designer
need.
set up for the last week of June to do as much as we can to get this ready for you, so you're ready to roll it out in July. and Joyce, if you're still there, if the select board look at this version, obviously, there's still gonna be a lot of gaps.
Yeah, I
Hope
mean,
they
it's
understand that.
live up, it's updated live, right? So any changes you make between now and Monday, if they click on the link Monday afternoon, they'll see it, right?
Actually, excuse me, I don't think so, no. This is, there will probably be published a new link at the end of June, you know,
Okay.
No, it doesn't, it
Yeah.
isn't just,
That's
virtually updated now.
fine. We'll give them this link. You saw my email back to them right now that I just sent. They can look at this and they can suffer. It'll be fine. You could give them the Magna Carta and there's gonna be criticism. It's okay. We're ready.
This version is pretty solid
There are always
for them to,
changes.
Yes.
They'll be able to digest
Yeah.
it enough, okay. Yeah.
And it does incorporate their changes that they made, I think, earlier this spring. There were edits that were requested by one of the board members. Sorry, they were definitely incorporated into this version.
Yeah, this is a solid thing for them to dig their teeth in, and we'll get a sense of the political winds. And like I said, it has less to do with the quality of this. This is strong for them to look at.
And Joyce, just so you know, we got 2 new selectmen on the board, so.
Yes.
select
Oh yeah.
people.
Oh yeah. I got my finger on the pulse.
All right, so you might have to
Yeah.
do the whole rigmarole and get everybody up to speed.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be great. I'm feeling tough. It's gonna be good.
Joyce?
Yes.
I feel very comfortable sitting down with Mark Kelleher and walking him
Sure.
through what we've gone through and goosing him up to.
I think that's
Not
great. I don't anticipate Mark being a problem. But yes, please build consensus wherever you
Yeah,
can.
yeah. Because,
I've spoken with him at length before as well. So yeah.
okay. Do we have anything else?
well, just on, see, we talked about committees, where do we stand with community outreach?
So I will send you an assignment with all of us on it, so that you can all see your assignments. But that should not be in June. You would want to get on their schedule in July or August. But if there's a committee you would like to reach out to in
No,
the
the que-
meantime to get on,
The question was community outreach.
Public.
Public
Yeah, not
engagement.
public.
so like an
public
open,
Meetings.
like a public session.
Yeah.
We could maybe try and do something in August
August or September.
or September.
I would anticipate like a group meeting would be pretty low yield, to be honest, traditionally. But if someone feels strongly that they want to do it, once we have the draft, like say in early July, I think our highest yield has been on social media. I mean, do you guys feel strongly about?
Could we do something like where we, I don't know, post a short executive summary on YouTube and just, distribute that accordingly? And then if people want to have deeper conversations, we just give out, I don't know, contact information of some sort?
I still think it's helpful to have at least one open forum invite, and if not many people show up,
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to be able to say at town meeting that.
The one we
Yeah.
had at the
Sure.
Town Foreign Community Center had proved that.
Maybe, hey, why don't we say maybe, let's just tentatively, do you want to say maybe our August meeting is
Open?
the community, yeah.
Community center.
Why don't we have August meeting be our party and everyone come tell us what they think? You want to do that?
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
I like it. And we
Okay.
we just want to keep our 2 meetings that we have, so the July and August one, right? And we're not gonna accelerate anything else, we're just gonna do some of this.
For right now, we're nimble, but for right now, and actually I have to even put us on the calendar for July and August. But yeah, let's keep it the first Tuesday, July and August.
Okay, cool. Anything else on scheduling or community outreach? We're good?
I think so.
August meeting is going to be.
Okay.
quote unquote.
Garrett, you run an awesome meeting.
I just keep my mouth shut.
That is a fine
Thank you,
attribute.
Garrett. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody. You guys really all have such a special role in this. We couldn't do it without everybody, so thank you.
Joyce.
Fearless leader, thank you, Joyce. Does anyone want a
Oh,
motion?
trying.
Move it to closure.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call.
You gotta do a roll call.
Oh, yeah, Joyce, do you move to close?
I move to close.
Brian, close.
Joyce McIntyre moves to close.
Mary, can I just say aye?
Yes.
Aye. Ed.
David, I.
Bernadette, aye.
Barbara, aye.
Whoop-de-whoop, meeting is adjourned.